Okay, start the actual dinim of the Rosh Hashanah itself. So Rosh Hashanah night, with this year's Monday night, so women have to light candles. Now there's a whole question, Yom Tov, not question, there's different customs. Now Shabbos you have to light 18 minutes before sundown because Shabbos you're not allowed to light candles. But Yom Tov you are allowed to light candles from a pre-existing flame. So the question is, when do women light candles the night of Yom Tov? Do they light later, after Yom Tov begins, from a pre-existing flame? Or do they light the regular time like they do every Shabbos? And there's different customs. The Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch says that our custom is that we do it like every Shabbos. Like every Shabbos, you light 18 minutes before sundown. So not to differentiate between Yom Tov and Shabbos, everything should be uniform, so to speak. Now, what's the bracha of the candle lighting? This is a very unique Chabad custom that I don't know if anybody, I don't think anybody else has this custom, but it originates from the Alter Rebbe. And a regular Yom Tif, you say Lahadik Ner Shel Yom Tif. Most women and Rosh Hashanah also say Lahadik Ner Shel Yom Tif and Shechianu. Our custom is that you say Lahadik Ner Shel Yom HaZikaron, which is the same text as we say in the Bracha of the Haftarah, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Yom HaZikaron. So therefore, that's what the Alter Rebbe writes. That's what the Rebbe brings down that the Alter Rebbe did, and that was a minhag from all generations of Chabad. And obviously, the first night you also make a Shechianu. Now, what happens if a man lives alone and he lights his own candles? Okay, because he has to light candles. So now, when you make Shechianu by candle lighting or by Kiddush, it's for the Yom Tif. So women make it when they light candles. Men make the Shechianu at Kiddush. That's because normally women light the candles and men make Kiddush. But what happens if a woman lives alone and she's doing both? She's lighting candles and she's making Kiddush. Or a man lives alone and he's lighting candles and makes Kiddush. So you don't say Shechianu twice because you don't say the same bracha twice. So now the question is, when should they say it? So the custom is that women say it at candle lighting and men make it a Kiddush. Because it's still candle lighting is the women's thing, Kiddush is the man's thing. So therefore our custom, not only that's the custom, that women, if they're doing both Kiddush, candle lighting and Kiddush, they'll make the Shechianu a candle lighting, men will make it a Kiddush. What? Huh? That's what I'm saying, he makes it a Kiddush, not a candle lighting.
If a wife is late on a candle, turning on, is it okay for the guy to turn it on and then she says, after Kiddush?
Well, it says in Halacha, by the way, if a man sees that his wife is falling asleep and he shouldn't care about her screaming, this is what it says in Shulchan Aruch. You should just go light the candle because you can't light candles late on Friday night. Here, Yom Tov, it doesn't matter. If the wife's not ready, let her light it later.
But if it's already Shabbat, it's already in 18 minutes, the guy can still turn it on.
Yeah.
But the woman cannot.
The woman could also do it in 18 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Now, the 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah. Okay. Number one, it says in Halacha that the last mincha of the year, you should daven with a lot of Kavanah because it's the last prayer of the year. Now, Rosh Hashanah, the 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, the previous Rebbe writes in a letter, every spare moment should be utilized saying Tehillim. People should be extremely careful not to talk, just things, only things that are important. In fact, it's brought down that many of the Rabbeim didn't speak the whole first night of Rosh Hashanah. They just didn't talk. In fact, the Rebbe didn't talk the first night of Rosh Hashanah. Some Rabbeim did, some Rabbeim did. There was very interesting, different customs at the Rabbeim. They would just say till. They would daven, obviously.
Some of them even both days.
Huh?
Some of them even
Both days? Not by the Rabbeim. Not that I know.
The first night is the most important?
Yeah, the first night is the most important thing. Because once you come in the morning and you blow shofar and you have the psukim of Musaf, that already is the main thing. It's done already. Okay, so you have to say a lot of sleep a little Sleep little, and say a lot of Tehillim.
But at night, it's okay to go to sleep.
No, I'm saying even at night it says Rosh Hashanah people should minimize them sleeping and be busy a whole night saying Tehillim. Now, in the, what?
You start saying Tehillim though, Shabbos Levarchim before Rosh Hashanah, you also say Tehillim?
Yeah, the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah, even though you don't bless Rosh Chodesh, but we still say the whole Tehillim, yeah. Okay, we have to be careful that 10 days of Sersi made sure you have to add a Melech HaKadosh, a Melech HaMishpat, all the additions.
You cannot sleep your Rosh Hashanah day, right?
It says in Halacha, if you sleep Rosh Hashanah day, you'll have a sleepy mazel for the year. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. Now, they tell, huh? That's why. So, it's interesting. The Rebbe Rashab had a very big chassid, Reb Greinim. The Mashpia, he was the chayzer, he was a very great man. And he was once, and the Rebbe Rashab used to say Maimon the second night of Rosh Hashanah also. So these guys, you have to understand, these guys were up all night Rosh Hashanah, and they were davening hours and hours and hours. So in the afternoon, before the Maimon, he went to lay down a little bit. So somebody said to him, Reb Shmuel, his name was Reb Shmuel Greinim, you're going to have a sleepy mazel. He said, I'd rather have a sleepy mazel than a sleepy maimer. But in fact, in Shulchan Aruch it's brought down from that Arizal that the day of Rosh Hashanah in the afternoon you could sleep a little bit, but again, the minig is to try to avoid sleeping. Okay, the first...
Second day or the
first day. No, second day for sure. Second day is less important than the first day.
But at night is very important too. To be
So left to say Tehillim and as much as possible.
So what, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock?
5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning.
5:15.
I told you that the previous Rebbe said, we said that shit the other day, the previous Rebbe said many years ago that you'd never find our Rebbe in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. Either he didn't go to sleep yet or he woke up already. But you'll never find him 4 o'clock in the morning in bed. Okay, now, Kiddush, Rosh Hashanah, you have, the Kiddush that it's in the Machzeh, the special Kiddush. Okay, it's a regular Kiddush, except it's a Yom Tov Kiddush with Shechianu. Now, after you make Kiddush, now generally speaking, it's a custom not to eat sour, bitter foods on Rosh Hashanah. Some people, in fact, have a minig until Sukkot. But officially, the minig is that you don't eat bitter, sour foods because Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. It's symbolic of the entire year. You don't want to have a bitter year. Everything on Rosh Hashanah, people eat sweet. You dip challah in honey. You eat sweet foods. You eat foods that mean a lot in any language. For instance, there's a custom you eat in America, in Yiddish you call it simis, cooked carrots that are very sweet. So it says in Sfarim, why do you eat carrots? Besides the fact it's sweet. But in Yiddish, the word for carrots are meren. Meren is the Yiddish word for carrots. And meren means to have a lot. Mer, more, meren. So again, you eat things that you don't eat, many people won't eat mustard, they won't eat sharp, spicy foods, they'll eat sweet foods. You mean they won't be able to survive?
Food. This is not sweet. This is spice and makes it more delicious.
Yes, sour and...
All I'm saying, it's a custom. No, but the pomegranate, we'll get to that, 1 second. We'll get to that in a minute. So now, when you make a maitzi, okay, it's a regular lechem mishnah like on regular Friday night, except instead of dipping the challah into salt, you dip the challah into honey. Our custom is, we dip it into honey 3 times. Just like salt, you dip it 3 times, we dip it into honey 3 times.
Can you remind us why we do this?
I'll tell you in a second. Now, some people have a minig, in fact the Rebbe did this also, that the first piece they dip into honey, But then they'll take another piece and dip it into salt also. But even if you don't use salt to dip, you need salt on the table because the table is an altar, and the altar always had salt. Korbanos had salt. The reason why you don't pour salt on the challah, the Kabbalistic custom, is you dip the challah into salt 3 times. Because the word for salt in Hebrew is melach, mem lamed ches, which equals 78. Now we know a table, the shulchan is a mizbeach, right? You consume the sacrifice, we consume our food. So Yud Kei Vav Kei equals 26. Zah shulchan asher lifnei Hashem. So Yud Kei Vav Kei equals 26. 3 times 26 is 78. So when you dip the challah 3 times, it says in Kabbalah it's 3 times 26, which equals 78. So somebody asked the Rebbe, so dvash equals 306. So why do you still dip it 3 times? So he said, the Rebbe answered that just like melach is 78, lechem is the same letters as melach. So therefore, even by honey, our minig is, we don't put the honey on the challah, our minig is to dip actually the honey into the challah into the honey 3 times.
3 times?
I told you, because 3 times Yud Kei Vav Kei equals 78, which is lechem and melach and all that. Now, at the beginning of the meal, again, there's a lot of Sfardim have a lot of interesting customs, what you eat, what you don't eat, the Rosh Hashanah. But in Ashkenazic circles, there's 2 things we eat the first night by the meal, besides the challah and honey. And that is an apple and honey and a pomegranate. Okay? Why do you eat an apple dipped into honey on Rosh Hashanah? Because the Jews are likened to an apple orchard. In fact, in the Bnei Hecholis, you'll see over there before that, the Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin of the holy apple orchard. So because the Jews are likened to an apple, on Rosh Hashanah, we want to take the apple and dip it into honey. Now, even though you washed for bread, even though you already washed for bread, but again, the apple is not what's normally eaten to fill you up. It's not meat, fish, or things like that. So you have to make a very pure eight on the apple. And then in addition to that, there is a hiratzin that we say, Yiratzim Afanechashet, the Chadish Aleinu Shana Tova Mesuka. We say that hiratzin. And according to our custom, even though you already made the bracha, but we say that hiratzin before you bite into the apple. So in other words, what you do is, you dip first the apple and honey 3 times before you make the bracha, because we don't want to make a break between the bracha and the actual eating. So you dip the apple and honey 3 times, then you make the bracha, then you say Yiratzim Afanecha, whatever, and then you eat the apple.
That's not a hefsek?
No, the Rebbe has a whole letter from the Rebbe explaining why halachically it's not a hefsek. The reason why we eat a pomegranate, because the pomegranate has a lot of seeds, and because it has a lot of seeds, in fact, some people want to say 613, and you know a lot of people counted it wasn't, and some people counted it was, but it doesn't. Basically, pomegranates have a lot of seeds, which means we should multiply in Gashmis and Ruchnias with a lot of seeds. But there's a unique thing the Rebbe writes that normally we learned already in Berch Sanenin. If you have a fruit from Eretz Yisrael, you know, that Eretz Yisrael is praised with, the 7 species. And you have an apple, you're supposed to make ha'eh, and you can eat both, you make ha'eh on the pomegranate. But here the Rebbe writes, even though you're going to be eating the pomegranate, you still make ha'eh on the apple. Because that night, the apple is more important than the pomegranate, and therefore, even though you have a pomegranate on the table, and you have an apple on the table, you should make ha'eh on the pomegranate. No, we make ha'eh on the apple.
What is the significance of apple?
I told you, the Jews are likened to an apple orchard.
The Jews are...
We're likened to a lot of things. We're likened to stars, we're likened to sand, we're likened to dirt, believe it or not. We're likened to a lot of things. But in Kabbalah, it's a big Indian of what's called Chakal Tapuch Kadish, an apple sweet. The Jews, there's a lot of, it's Kabbalistic, that there's a connection between the Jews, the Jewish people, and an apple.